Melissa's scream cut through the music like glass snapping in someone's fist. "Oh my God, what is this?" Voices blurred behind her, a chorus of shocked gasps and phones lifting all at once. I wasn't there to see it, but Harold had his TV turned on low in the background, and even from miles away in Tucson, I felt the vibration in my bones. I could picture her perfectly, anyway, my daughter, Melissa Ruiz, 42 years old, always flawless, always in control. Now standing in front of a room full of investors and friends, with her hands shaking over a walnut box she thought would make her shine. Harold leaned closer to me on the couch. "That'll be her opening it," he said. His voice was steady, but he couldn't hide the small tremor of satisfaction under it. I held my teacup a little tighter. "My name is Caroline Ruiz. I am 68 years old, retired after more than 4 decades as a nurse. And for most of my life, I believed motherhood meant enduring anything to keep peace. 10 nights ago, that belief died. But this moment, this scream, was the sound of a truth that had finally stopped hiding. My phone lit up on the table. "Incoming call, Melissa." Harold reached for the remote, muting the chatter from the kitchen where our small group of friends was laughing over Harold's burnt ham. Outside, Tucson's winter air slipped through the cracked window, crisp and dry, settling over my skin. I let the phone ring once, twice, 3 times, before I slowly picked it up and tapped speaker. "Mom." Melissa's voice was frantic, unrecognizable. "Mom, where are you? Where did you go?" I kept my voice steady. "I told you I had plans. Melissa, you need to get here right now," she snapped, her breathing jagged. "Everyone saw this. Everyone is staring at me." "What did you do? What is this?" I could hear voices around her, someone whispering her name, someone else saying the word report. Shoes scraped against marble. A man muttered about leaving before things got worse. I lifted the phone closer. "Did you like my gift?" Silence. Not the soft kind, this one hit like a punch. "Are you kidding me?" she finally choked out. "This isn't funny." "Mom, you ruined everything." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She had known all her life that my voice never rose, even when my heart was breaking. It must have terrified her now, because she spoke again, louder, desperate. "Mom, come here. We can fix this. Just tell everyone it's a mistake." Across the room, Mara topped off the glasses with cheap, sparkling wine. Dylan hovered in the doorway. Trying not to listen, but listening anyway, Harold placed a hand on my shoulder, grounding me. I lowered the phone from my ear. "I think that's enough for tonight." "Caroline." "Mom." "Don't hang up, Mom." Her voice cut off as I pressed the screen. Call ended for a moment. No one moved. The air felt thicker somehow, like the world was shifting into a position it should have always held. I set the phone face down on the table. My heartbeat began to slow. The tremor in my hands eased. Harold exhaled. "Well," he said, "that's one way to start a new year." I looked around the living room. Mismatched chairs, a crooked string of lights. People who saw me not my age, not my flaws, not as a burden, not as a brand prop, just me. 10 nights earlier, I would have given anything to be at Melissa's side. 10 nights earlier. I still believed that showing up meant something. Now the clock on Harold's wall clicked toward midnight. And I finally understood that some doors close, not because you walk away, but because the person inside locked them long ago. I lifted my glass. "Let's enjoy our night." And as laughter rose again around me, my mind drifted back to the dinner where everything had started. The moment I first heard the words that changed the shape of my life. 10 nights before that scream at midnight. My phone lit up while I was eating soup alone in my little Tucson kitchen. Melissa's name flashed on the screen. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and answered. "Hi, Misha." Her voice was brisk, like she was already halfway out the door. Mom, you busy on Friday? I glanced at the half-empty bowl, the quiet apartment, the pile of folded scrubs I still wore around the house even though I had retired. I can move things around. Good, she said. No pause. We're doing a pre-New Year's dinner. Investors, a few friends, some family. I told them you'd come. Oh, I tried to hide the surprise in my voice. You told them about me. She gave a short laugh. Well, you are my mother. It would look weird if you were not there at all. Anyway, it is in Phoenix. 6:30. Derek will text you the address. Just be on time and maybe dress a little nicer than usual, okay? My stomach pinched. I can find something. And, Mom, she added, please do not start telling hospital stories at the table. People are there to relax. I understand, I said softly. The line clicked dead. No goodbyes. No, how are you feeling? Just instructions. On Friday, I drove the 2 hours to Phoenix with my best blouse on a hanger in the back seat and a tin of homemade cheese empanadas on the passenger side. I knew she would have a caterer. I brought them anyway. Old habits die hard. Derek opened the door. He was still in his work shirt. Sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. Caroline, he said, and his smile was warm. If tired, you made it. Here, let me take that. He reached for the tin. I held it a second longer. There is food already. I know. But maybe someone will want something a little more simple. I will make sure these get out, he said quietly. You came a long way. Voices floated from the dining room, bright and overlapping. We walked in together. The long table was already full, candles down the center, wine breathing in wide glasses. Melissa stood at the far end, hand on the back of a chair. Mid-sentence with a couple in matching designer jackets. When she saw me, her eyes skimmed from my shoes to my hair. Quick and sharp. There she is, she announced. The guest of honor. There was a laugh from someone nearby. I could not tell if it was kind or not. I stepped closer. Hello? Melissa. She leaned in, kissed the air near my cheek, her perfume strong. You cut it close. Mom, we were almost starting without you. I left early. I said, traffic on the 10? She turned to the couple. This is my mother, Caroline. She used to be a nurse. Now she is, enjoying retirement in Tucson. The woman with the diamond earrings smiled politely. How lovely. Melissa clapped her hands. Okay. Everyone, shuffle in, Mom. You can sit over there. Over there turned out to be the far corner of the table. Half a seat pulled in from the kids' side. I squeezed in. From that end, the conversations at the center of the table came in waves, fragments catching in the air, then breaking apart. Ava slid into the chair next to me. 16. Almost as tall as her mother, but her eyes were softer. She nudged my elbow. Hi. Abuela, she whispered. You look pretty, I smiled. Thank you, corazón. You look grown up. She rolled her eyes. Mom made me wear heels. I almost died walking from the car. Do not die, I said. At least not before we eat. She smothered a laugh behind her water glass. On her other side, her little brother Lucas was glued to some video on his tablet with headphones on. Derek took a seat near the middle, close enough to Melissa to refill her wine, far enough to watch the room. Dinner started, plates came and went. People talked business. Melissa's voice rose above the others as she told a story about closing some deal downtown. Phoenix has changed so much. Someone said, this city is nothing like when our parents were our age. Melissa flicked her hair. My mom remembers the old days. She said, right. Mom, when this was just dust and diners and saguaros, I smiled politely. The hospitals were the same. People get sick in any decade. A few chuckles. Melissa did not look at me. Later, when dessert was served, she tapped her spoon against her glass. The room quieted. So, she said brightly, most of you know we throw a big New Year's party every year. This one is going to be extra special. Her eyes swept the table, pausing just a little too long on me. This year, she continued, we are finally going to let my mom be the star of the show. We are putting together something fun. Old photos, little videos. You know. Before she starts repeating herself on her own, laughter burst around her end of the table. At my corner, the sound arrived slower, duller, like it had to travel through water. A muscle jumped in Derek's jaw. He stared down at his plate. Ava's shoulders tensed. She dropped her spoon, and it clinked against the dish. Mom, Ava said softly, that is not funny. Melissa waved a hand. Relax. It is family. Everyone teases their parents. Besides, we just want to make sure she does not go off script on New Year's. Big investors. You know. She faced the couple again. You understand. My mom is sweet, but she is not media trained. My cheeks burned. I did not know I was giving a speech. Oh, we will handle it, Melissa said. You just show up. Look cute. Do not talk too long, and let us handle the rest. The words landed heavy. Do not talk too long, look cute. Let us handle the rest. Ava's hand slid under the table, squeezing my fingers. I squeezed back. I told myself I was overreacting, that it was just Melissa trying to impress her friends. I told myself it was only a joke that did not land. I told myself a lot of things as I smiled and finished my coffee. Later, when I stood to get my shawl from the hallway, the sound of her voice carried from the kitchen, sharper now that she thought I could not hear. I slipped away from the table under the excuse of finding my shawl, though really I just needed a moment to breathe. My chair had felt smaller with every joke, every sideways glance. The hallway was dim, quiet compared to the bright noise behind me. I found the shawl draped over a chair by the entryway and picked it up, smoothing the fringe with my hands. Then I heard Melissa's voice. Okay, tell me you are ready, she said, the words sharp and full of wine-fueled excitement. This New Year's party is going to be iconic. A man laughed. I recognized him. Evan, one of Melissa's business partners. I still cannot believe you are doing this to your mom. It is harmless, Melissa insisted. She will survive. Besides, she has always been a little dramatic. This might even help her loosen up. I froze, one hand gripping the shawl. Another woman chimed in. So, what exactly are you showing? You said something about a slideshow? Oh, it is hilarious, Melissa said. Ava sent me all these clips from her phone, old lady moments. You know, my mom forgetting her keys, losing her glasses on her own head, falling asleep at noon on the couch. People love that stuff, relatable content. They laughed again, louder this time. Evan whistled. You are going to embarrass her in front of your entire investor list. She embarrasses herself every time she opens her mouth. Melissa snapped lightly. Anyway, it is time she accepts she needs supervision. My chest tightened. I pressed myself against the wall. Out of sight. What about the care plan thing you mentioned? The woman asked. Oh, that... Melissa lowered her voice, but not enough. We are making the announcement during the countdown. Assisted living. A really nice one. I already paid the deposit. Once she is settled, we can clean up all the paperwork. I cannot keep dealing with her bills and her rambling. Paperwork, Evan asked. Bank stuff, house stuff, inheritance stuff. Melissa said casually. You know how older people get. They forget things. They cause problems. It is better if we just take care of everything. Someone clinked a glass.
You are ruthless. Melissa, it is not ruthless, she said. It is responsible. Someone has to protect the family. The word protect twisted inside me. I stepped backward, careful not to make a sound, but my heel tapped lightly against the hardwood. The voices paused. Did you hear something? The woman whispered. Probably the dog, Melissa said. Relax. Mom is probably still talking about the 1970s with Ava.
I moved farther down the hallway and slipped into the half bath, closing the door quietly. My hands shook as I braced them on the sink. The tile under my feet felt icy. My phone buzzed. A text. Ava, Grandma. Be careful. I stared at the message, my throat tightening. She had heard something. Not everything, but enough. I typed back with trembling fingers. I am okay, sweetheart, but I was not okay. I could still hear the laughter outside, the casual cruelty, the ease with which Melissa made plans for my life as though I were furniture to be moved. I pressed my palm to my chest, willing my heartbeat to slow. I had spent decades believing Melissa's sharpness was stress, or ambition, or the weight of single motherhood. I had stood beside her through every broken relationship, every career change, every moment she needed someone to blame. Now I heard her as if for the first time. The flush of voices drifted back into motion, someone asking for another drink. Melissa telling a joke at someone else's expense. The dinner carried on, bright and effortless, untouched by the crack spreading inside my ribs. I knew I had to walk back in, pretend nothing happened, sit in that far seat again, let her direct the room like she always did. I stepped out of the bathroom, adjusting my shawl over my shoulders, and walked toward the dining room. The laughter grew louder as I approached. Ava saw me first, eyes wide, lips pressed together like she was holding a secret for both of us. I took my seat quietly. No one noticed. No one paused. Only Ava leaned against my arm for a brief second, her voice barely a breath. Abuela, she whispered. Something is wrong. And for the first time in years, I did not swallow it down. I just held on to her hand under the table, steadying myself as the last threads of the night pulled tight around us. The drive from Phoenix back to Tucson felt longer than the usual 2 hours. The highway was quiet, just the hum of tires and the faint whistle of wind through the cracked window. I kept replaying the voices from the kitchen, Melissa laughing, the clink of glasses, the casual cruelty as she planned my humiliation like it was an agenda item on her calendar. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. The night blurred past on both sides. But my mind was stuck in places far older than that dining room. I saw myself 20 years old again, standing beside a hospital bed while Miguel squeezed my hand through his last breath. I had walked out of that room a widow with a toddler who barely understood what death meant. Melissa had cried because she wanted her father, not because she understood she had lost him. I remembered the first time I worked a double shift. She was 6. I came home at dawn, and she was sitting on the couch with her backpack still on, angry tears running down her face. You forgot the field trip, she said. Everyone had their mom there. I had apologized, promising to do better. I never missed another one, even if it meant running straight from a night shift with no sleep. But resentment grows quietly. It settles in the corners of a person. It builds into something sharp. Tonight, in that kitchen doorway, I finally heard the shape of hers. I hit the blinker and exited near a small gas station just outside Casa Grande. I pulled into the empty parking lot and turned off the engine. For a moment, I just sat there, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. The silence wrapped around me like something heavy. I pressed my forehead to the steering wheel, and the tears came, slow at first, then harder. the way grief sometimes does when you finally stop holding it back. All the years of giving, explaining, excusing, they washed over me in a single wave. Why, Melissa, I whispered, why would you do this to me? My phone vibrated in the cup holder. A text from Ava. Are you safe? I wiped my face with my sleeve and typed back. I am driving home now. Mi niña, go to sleep. When I pulled into my neighborhood in Tucson, the street was dark. Porch lights here were simple, warm, nothing like the cold glow of Melissa's gated world. My house sat quietly at the end of the block. The same little place Miguel and I bought when we thought we had a whole life ahead of us. Inside, the air smelled like pine cleaner and old wood. I didn't turn on the lights. I just walked into the living room and sat on the floor with my back against the couch. The room felt too big, or maybe I felt too small. I kept hearing Melissa's voice. She embarrasses herself every time she opens her mouth. She needs supervision. We will clean up the paperwork after. The last sentence lingered the longest. Clean up the paperwork. That wasn't a joke. Melissa was too strategic for jokes like that. There was something underneath it. A plan. A reason she wanted me controlled. Quiet. Tucked away. A cold whisper slid down my spine. I reached for my purse, pulled out my worn leather folder, the one that held my will, my house deed, my banking papers. I stared at it in the dark. Something felt wrong inside me, a tremor I couldn't ignore anymore. Humiliation was only the show she wanted to put on. Something else was happening behind the curtain. Something that had nothing to do with New Year's Eve parties. I held the folder against my chest, feeling its weight like a warning as the night closed around me. The next morning, I made coffee so strong it tasted like metal and carried it to the dining table. The leather folder I had pulled out the night before sat in front of me. I opened it slowly, as if it might bite. Bank statements, policy forms, retirement account notices. I had kept everything, but never in perfect order. I used to pride myself on being organized. Nurses are trained to track every detail. But after retirement, I let things pile up. It was easier to pretend nothing important could go wrong. I started with my checking account. The first page showed a withdrawal of $200, then another, then $400, then $600, always within days of each other, always at the same bank branch near Melissa's house in Phoenix. I whispered to myself, no, that cannot be right. I flipped to the next month. More withdrawals, identical amounts, same pattern. My breath tightened. Did I take that out? Did I forget? A cold fear crept into my chest. Not of Melissa, but of myself. Was I losing pieces of my memory? I grabbed the next document, my savings. The number at the top nearly made me drop the page. It was far lower than the last time I had checked. Nearly $10,000 lower. My hands shook. Caroline, I whispered. Focus. I flipped back and forth between pages, tracing dates with my finger. Every withdrawal happened either on a day I was working on my garden or a day I knew for certain I had not driven to Phoenix. I picked up the phone and called the bank. A woman answered with a cheerful voice. Thank you for calling Sunray Community Bank. How can I help you today? This is Caroline Ruiz. I said, I need information on who has been accessing my accounts. Of course. Ms. Ruiz, let me pull that up. I waited. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. Oh, the woman said softly. I see there is a joint account holder. All withdrawals were made under that authorization. My mouth went dry. Joint holder. Who Melissa Ruiz? She said, her signature is on the file. Would you like me to email you the documentation? I couldn't speak at first. Yes. Please send it. After we hung up, I stared at my laptop until the notification pinged. I opened the file. There it was. A joint account authorization form. My signature looked shaky. not like my usual writing. And Melissa's signature, bold and neat, right below it. Right, I whispered. When did I sign this? The date said 9 months ago. I tried to remember that day. I could not. Maybe I was sick. Maybe Melissa rushed me. Maybe I shook my head. The fear of dementia pressed against my ribs. No, I said aloud, this pattern. It feels too exact. I kept digging. Folder after folder. Receipts, printouts, the paperwork from a long-term care facility in Tempe. I had toured one years ago, just out of curiosity, but I had never committed to anything. At the back of the stack, I found a thinner sheet, a deposit slip. $5,000. The line beneath it read, non-refundable deposit for future resident Caroline Ruiz. I flipped it over. The signature at the bottom was crisp, confident. It was not mine. It was Melissa's. A pulse of heat hit my face. My hands curled into fists around the page. All the jokes about supervision. All the comments about cleaning up paperwork. The slideshow of old lady moments. It wasn't just cruelty. It was preparation. I set the papers down gently. Even though I wanted to tear them apart, my body felt too still, too cold. The house around me was silent, but inside my chest, everything was screaming. I reached for my phone and placed it on top of the documents, letting the weight of all of it settle. Melissa wasn't just planning to embarrass me. She was planning to take control of my life and my money before I even realized it. And now that I finally understood, there was no going back to the woman I had been yesterday. I was still staring at the pile of papers on my dining table when the knock came. 3 steady taps. No one else knocked like that. I wiped my face with the back of my hand and opened the door. Harold Kim stood there in his gray cardigan, holding a small container. I made too much kimchi stew. He said, "Thought you might want some." I tried to smile. "That is kind of you, Harold." He looked at me longer than a neighbor should. "You are upset. I am fine. You are not." He said simply, "Let me in." I stepped aside. Harold walked straight to the table and saw the documents spread out like a crime scene. His eyes narrowed. "Sit," he said, pulling out a chair for me. I sat. My legs felt heavier than they should. Harold lowered himself into the chair across from me and touched the top sheet with one finger. "Start from the beginning." I told him everything. The dinner, the laughter, the kitchen conversation, the withdrawals, the deposit form with Melissa's signature, the joint account I did not remember signing. My voice broke only once. When I got to the part about assisted living, Harold listened without interrupting. His expression shifted from concern to something sharper, a kind of quiet anger that suited him. "Let me see the statements," he said, adjusting his glasses. I handed them over. He scanned them quickly, his years as a bank officer showing in the way his eyes flicked between dates and amounts. He tapped the page. "These withdrawals, they are structured." "What does that mean?" "They follow a pattern. Same days of the week, similar amounts, consistent frequency. That is not forgetfulness. That is intentional access." I swallowed. "By Melissa." He nodded once. "Yes." He picked up the joint account authorization and held it close. "This signature of yours looks off. I thought maybe I signed when I was tired." I said softly, or confused. "Caroline." Harold's voice gentled. "Your handwriting has always been steady. This one looks rushed. Firm pressure. Shaky slant. That happens when someone tries to copy a signature they do not fully understand." My stomach dropped. "So it is forged. It looks extremely suspicious." He said carefully, "At minimum, it deserves investigation." I pressed my hands together. I do not want to believe she would do this. "People do worse when they feel entitled," he said. "And Melissa, she is used to being in control." He pulled another page forward, the long-term care deposit slip. $5,000, he murmured. "That is a standard pre-admission payment." And this he tapped. Melissa's signature is a problem. I stared at the papers. feeling the weight of every number, every line. Harold looked at me directly. Caroline, this is classic elder financial exploitation. You have enough irregularities here to open a case. My throat tightened. What should I do? I am going to call my niece, Harold said. Standing. Her name is Sophia Kim. She is an elder law attorney in Phoenix. Sharp, honest. She handles cases like this every day. I do not want to start a war, I murmured. Harold shook his head. You did not start anything. Melissa did. Sophia will tell you what your options are. You deserve someone who sees what is happening. A tear slipped down my cheek. I wiped it away quickly. I feel foolish. You are not foolish, he said. His voice low and steady. You are trusting. There is a difference. He placed a hand on top of mine. Warm and firm. Sophia will meet you tomorrow. I will drive you if you want. I would appreciate that. He nodded, then pulled his phone out to send a message. Done. 11 in the morning. I looked at the documents again, scattered like pieces of a life I didn't recognize. Harold's voice softened. Caroline, whatever you think you know right now, prepare yourself. For what? For the truth. He said, it may be far uglier than anything you feared in that kitchen. Harold drove us to Phoenix the next morning. Neither of us spoke much during the trip. I kept my hands folded in my lap. The folder of documents pressed against my knees. Every few minutes, Harold glanced over, making sure I was still breathing evenly. We pulled up outside a small stucco building near downtown. The sign on the window read, Kim and Associates Elder Law, Estate Protection, Financial Safeguards. The lettering was simple. Nothing flashy. It made me feel steadier. Inside, the waiting area smelled faintly of lavender. A young woman at the desk smiled warmly. You must be Ms. Ruiz. Sophia is expecting you. Sophia. Kim stepped out moments later, a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes, a crisp blazer, and a kind expression that didn't soften her seriousness. She shook my hand firmly. Aunt Caroline, she said gently. Come in. I read the message Uncle Harold sent. Let us look at everything together. I followed her into a small office with neatly stacked case files and a single framed photo of Sophia in graduation robes, her parents beaming beside her. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. Start wherever feels right, she said. I opened the folder. Pages trembled slightly as I handed them across the desk. I do not know what is happening. I only know something is wrong. Sophia laid the pages out in organized rows. Her eyes moved quickly, quietly. She said nothing at first. That silence frightened me more than any words. Finally, she spoke. You were right to come here. Harold let out a slow breath behind me. Sophia tapped one sheet. These withdrawals, same amounts. Same pattern, same location. This is not forgetfulness. These are unauthorized transactions. My fingers curled together. But Melissa had the joint access obtained under unclear circumstances. Sophia said, and based on this signature comparison, I suspect the authorization form was not signed by you knowingly. She pushed 2 sheets forward, my real signature on an older medical release form and the signature on the joint account form. The slant is wrong, she explained. The pressure is different. The spacing is unnatural. I cannot legally call it forgery without investigation, but it is highly irregular, Harold murmured. I told you. I stared at the papers. I thought maybe I forgot signing it. Sophia shook her head. No, people do not forget signing long-term financial authorizations, especially when they are tied to their life savings. She moved on to the long-term care deposit slip. Now this is troubling. A non-refundable deposit of $5,000. Signed only by Melissa. I never agreed to any facility. I whispered, I know. Sophia replied, this is a red flag. Combined with withdrawal patterns and the joint account, It strongly suggests financial exploitation. That word made my stomach twist. Sophia leaned forward, her voice steady but gentler. Let me ask you directly, Ms. Ruiz, has your daughter pressured you about your living situation, about your finances? I nodded slowly. She has made comments, jokes, plans I did not agree to. Good. Sophia said, I mean, it is good that you are acknowledging this. You have more power than you think. She pulled a fresh document from her drawer. This is a revocation of power of attorney. If Melissa has any form of financial authority over you right now, this will remove it immediately. I did not give her any power of attorney. I said, you may have without realizing. Sophia replied, many people sign documents in hospitals. During stress, in stacks of paperwork, we will file this regardless. It protects you. She slid the paper and a pen toward me. My hand shook slightly as I signed. Next, Sophia continued, you can file an elder financial abuse report with Arizona Adult Protective Services. The evidence you have is strong recurring withdrawals, irregular signatures, unauthorized deposits. My chest tightened. Will Melissa get in trouble? Sophia didn't sugarcoat it. Yes, she could, especially if the forged signatures and withdrawals are proven. But this is about your safety, your independence, and your rights. I nodded. The room felt smaller, but the air felt clearer. Sophia kept speaking, calm and controlled. We will also freeze the joint account immediately and transfer all assets into accounts under your sole name, protected with security measures. Melissa cannot access. Harold placed a hand on my shoulder. You are doing the right thing. Sophia gathered the documents into a neat stack. Ms. Ruiz, you are not alone in this. I am your attorney now. Everything goes through me. Melissa cannot touch a cent of your money again. I swallowed hard, then whispered, thank you. Sophia smiled, but her eyes stayed sharp. This is only the beginning. We will uncover everything. As I stood to leave, she added quietly, prepare yourself. If what I see here continues down the same pattern, your daughter may face charges. Harold steadied me with a hand under my elbow. Sophia walked us to the door. I will call you tomorrow with the next steps. Stay with people you trust. Keep every document safe. Outside, the Phoenix sun felt too bright, too large. I gripped my folder tighter as Harold guided me toward the car. The pieces were coming together. Ugly pieces. Sharp pieces. Pieces Melissa never meant for me to find. Harold drove me home from Phoenix, but the whole ride felt like I was sitting beside myself. My body was in the car. My mind was still in Sophia's office, staring at the words elder financial exploitation printed across the report forms. When we pulled into my driveway, Harold put the car in park and turned to me. You have decisions to make, Caroline. I nodded, gripping the folder against my chest. I know. Not just legal ones, he added. Emotional ones. He didn't need to explain. I climbed out of the car and stood on the sidewalk, watching him drive away. Inside my house, the walls felt closer than usual. I set the folder on the kitchen table and just stared at it. Every document inside was a piece of a story Melissa had written without me. A story where I was the burden she needed to manage, not the mother who raised her. The silence grew too loud. I pulled out a chair and sat. For years, I spent my life absorbing blows, quietly unfair comments, dismissive tones, little jabs disguised as jokes. I told myself that Melissa was stressed, overwhelmed, ambitious, tired. I excused everything because that is what mothers do. We forgive, we bend, we swallow the sting. I had done all of that, and she still kept pushing. I reached for my phone and scrolled through old photos. Melissa as a baby, gripping my finger. Melissa at her 8th birthday party, frosting on her nose. Melissa in her high school graduation gown, smiling like she belonged to a future I could only imagine. I whispered into the empty room. Where did we go wrong? The phone dimmed. I put it face down. The truth was simple and ugly. Melissa had expected me to stay quiet forever, to let her reshape my life, my money, my independence just because it made her comfortable. But something inside me had shifted. I opened the folder again, smoothing out the pages like they were blueprints, because that is exactly what they were, the blueprint of the trap Melissa had built, the blueprint of the life she wanted to force me into. If she wanted a spectacle on New Year's Eve, if she wanted me as the centerpiece of a public display, then I would give her one, but not in the way she expected. I whispered it under my breath, the words settling into place like pieces of clay on a wheel. She wants public humiliation. She can have public truth. The idea grew in my mind, bright and frightening. Melissa had planned to put me on a stage, fine. I would let her audience see everything what she took, what she forged, what she planned. Not to destroy her reputation for the sake of cruelty, but because I refused to let her take another inch of my life while smiling in my face. I stood up, heartbeat steady. I had spent 68 years caring for others. I had one remaining duty, now take care of myself before Melissa erased the parts of me she found inconvenient. My voice felt stronger when I said it a second time. I am not going quietly. The clock on the wall ticked, marking the beginning of a new kind of resolve. I closed the folder, grabbed my notepad, and started writing a list: names, numbers, steps, confirmations. A plan began to take shape, sharper than anything I had ever crafted before.
The New Year's party wasn't just a gathering anymore. It was the stage where the truth would walk out wearing my name, not hers. Harold showed up the next morning with his keys already in hand. "You ready?" he asked. Ready wasn't the right word, but I nodded anyway and grabbed the folder. We drove across town to a little workshop, tucked behind a row of auto shops. A wooden sign swung above the door, Morales Custom Woodcraft. I had passed it 100 times over the years and never stepped inside. When we walked in, the smell of sawdust and varnish wrapped around us. Diego Morales, bearded, soft-spoken, probably in his 50s, looked up from a half-built cabinet. "Harold," he said, smiling. "Long time." Harold clapped his shoulder. "Diego, I need something special. Something strong. Something that looks like a gift but isn't." Diego raised an eyebrow. "Cryptic. I like it. Who's it for?" Harold glanced at me. "Her daughter." Diego's smile faded. "Ah." "Say no more." I stepped forward. "I need a box. Walnut, if possible. Something beautiful. Something she will open in front of other people." Diego wiped his hands on a cloth. "Tell me exactly what you want." I described it piece by piece: polished walnut, brass hinges, a velvet-lined interior, a recessed space for documents, and a smaller tray for 2 sealed envelopes. Diego listened without interrupting, then nodded firmly. "I can have it ready in 6 days," he said. "It will look like it belongs in a luxury boutique. But when someone opens it, well, that part will be up to you." Harold squeezed my arm. "She knows exactly what goes inside." Diego took measurements and wrote my name neatly on his order slip. "No worries. Señora, I will make it perfect." When we stepped outside, the sunlight felt too bright, like it was watching me. Back at my house, Harold sat beside me as I emptied the folder onto the table. I sorted every document slowly, deliberately. Sophia had already explained which pieces were essential. "Start with the notarized statements," Harold said. "Those need to be front and center." I placed them in a pile. Next came the withdrawal logs.
Everyone showed identical patterns, $200 bae, $400, $600, always from Phoenix. I stacked them neatly. Then the scanned signature's my real one versus the imitation on the joint account form. Seeing them side by side made my stomach twist, but I slid them into the next pile anyway. Finally, I added the official report numbers from Adult Protective Services and the Banking Fraud Division. My hands felt steadier than I expected. Harold leaned closer. Let her see everything. Let her know you know. Oh, I nodded. After hours of sorting, I found a single sheet of thick cream stationery. I sat at my kitchen table, smoothed it flat, and uncapped my pen. The words came easily. Melissa, these are copies. The originals are already with the proper authorities. Mom, I folded the letter once, sealed it in an envelope, and pressed a wax stamp over the flap. Miguel's old stamp, an M, inside a small ring. He used it on holiday cards. I had not touched it in years. When I finished, Harold let out a breath. You did it. No, I said quietly. I am doing it. We organized the papers into a binder Sophia had given me, black leather. Smooth. Heavy. When I closed it, it felt final, like the click of a lock. Harold picked up the binder and weighed it in his hands. This isn't revenge, he said. This is truth. I slipped the sealed letter on top, and soon, I said, it will be wrapped in walnut, 3 days before New Year's Eve. My phone buzzed while I was folding laundry. A message from Melissa. Be early. I set the shirt down and waited. Another text appeared. Don't embarrass me. Then a third. We have a surprise for you. The words sat on my screen like stones. I typed back. I will try my best. It was neither a promise nor a lie. It was exactly what she wanted to hear. An hour later, Harold knocked on my door with 2 grocery bags. I am making dinner for the New Year's gathering, he said. You do not get to argue. It is happening. I smiled despite everything. You are bossy, only with people who need it, he said. Now move. I brought ingredients that require supervision. We chopped vegetables together, letting the rhythm of the knife settle the air. At one point, Harold paused. You heard from her? Yes. He set the knife down gently. What did she say? I grabbed a carrot, sliced it thin, to be early, to not embarrass her. And that there is a surprise. Harold exhaled slowly. She still thinks she controls the stage. She does not know I am not going. Good, he said. You deserve a night with people who do not treat you like a prop. That afternoon, I texted Ava, how are you holding up? She replied almost instantly. Mom is acting strange. She keeps whispering with her friends. She said tomorrow will be legendary. Please be careful. I typed. I love you, mi niña. She sent back abuela. She is planning something huge. I felt the heaviness of her words settle into my chest. Ava knew more than she could say. The next morning, while Harold tested a recipe for tamarind chicken, I sat at the kitchen table and finalized my small guest list. Harold's sister, 2 neighbors from our street, and Clara from my old nursing unit, who still checked on me every holiday. Quiet people, safe people. Not one of them wanted anything from me. At noon, Melissa called. I let it ring twice before answering. Mom, she said briskly. You have your outfit set, right? Something elegant. Nothing that looks cheap or Tucsonish. I have clothes, I said simply, and do not bring any of your weird homemade food this time. The caterer has everything handled. I understand. You need to be here by 7:30, she said. Remember, this party is important. Of course. She hesitated. You sound strange. I am just tired. Well, go lie down, she said. You will need your energy tomorrow night. Trust me. I will, I said. When the call ended, Harold peeked in from the kitchen. How bad was that? She is confident. I said. She thinks she has me exactly where she wants me. Harold walked over and set a warm hand on my shoulder. That is good. Let her think it. The day passed quietly. I wrapped the binder in tissue paper and placed the sealed letter on top. Diego texted a photo. The walnut box finished. Polished to a shine. Delivery scheduled for the 31st at 11:30 in the evening. Perfect timing. As the sun went down, Harold lit a small candle on his coffee table. Tomorrow, he said, you get your life back. I nodded. Steady, and she will finally see the truth. Melissa's party would be loud and glittering. Mine would be quiet and safe. The choice felt like the first step away from a life where I begged for a daughter who no longer existed. I did not need her stage. I had my own place to stand far away from the people who never offered me a seat. Sophia had the forms ready when I walked into her office that afternoon. She didn't waste time with small talk. Her eyes were sharp, her tone firm. But she pulled a chair out for me gently, like she knew the weight of what I was about to do. Everything is prepared, she said. Take your time. Read each line. Ask anything you need. Harold sat beside me. Silent support. Sophia slid the first document forward. This revokes every version of power of attorney your daughter may have obtained legitimately or otherwise. Once you sign it, she no longer has any legal access to your accounts, decisions, or medical files. I took the pen. My hand trembled. But the fear wasn't what made it shake. It was grief. Something old and deep. The kind that comes when you realize a relationship you've been carrying for decades was already broken long before you admitted it. I signed my name. Sophia didn't pause. She brought out the next set. This is your updated will. Your assets, home, and accounts go exactly where you want them. No one can change this without your consent. I inhaled slowly. Remove Melissa completely. Sophia nodded and pointed to the space where her name once sat. Already done. My signature landed again, ink spreading clean and final. She placed the last folder on the table. Protective orders. These prevent Melissa from accessing your accounts, moving you into any facility, or making financial decisions on your behalf. They also restrict her ability to contact you if harassment starts after she realizes she has lost control. I swallowed. She will be angry. Sophia met my eyes. That anger is exactly why these protections exist. I signed, a third time, a fourth. My hand steadied with each stroke. Something inside me began to settle. Not comfort, not peace, but certainty. Harold let out a breath. You did it, but I wasn't finished. I reached into my purse and pulled out 2 blank envelopes. Sophia watched quietly as I wrote their names on the front. Ava Lucas letters to my grandchildren. Words they deserve to hear from me, not from the chaos their mother would create. I wrote slowly, carefully telling them I loved them, that none of this was their fault, that I hoped they would grow into kind people, even if the world around them sometimes wasn't. I sealed the envelopes and slid them into my bag. Sophia gathered the signed forms. All protections go into effect today, she said. By tonight, Melissa will no longer have any legal avenue to interfere with your life. That sentence landed like a door closing. I stood, feeling both lighter and heavier than before. Harold touched my elbow. You ready I am, I said, for all of it. As we walked toward the exit, the truth hit me fully, not just the legal documents or the revoked permissions, but the finality of it. I was choosing myself. And that meant accepting that Melissa might never forgive me. I stepped out into the Arizona air. The sun was low, the sky turning amber. Bridges don't burn with fire, they burn with signatures. With silence. With the decision to stop waiting for someone who already walked away. And I had signed every line. The evening before New Year's Eve, I was sitting at Harold's kitchen table, helping him slice fruit for the punch bowl, when my phone buzzed. Melissa, Harold glanced at the screen, then at me. Answer if you want, or let it ring. I took a breath and tapped the call. Hello, Mom. Melissa's voice came through syrup sweet, warmer than I'd heard in months. I was just thinking about you. I held the phone loosely. Were you? Of course, she said. I know the holidays can be emotional for you, so I wanted to check in. Her tone was honeyed, but there was a sharpness under it. Melissa never called with softness unless she needed something. I appreciate that, I said. She let out a bright laugh. And I wanted to make sure you remembered the dress code for tomorrow. Elegant, but not too flashy. Nothing that draws attention away from the program. Program, I asked. She stopped, just a half second, enough for me to hear her inhale. Oh, nothing, she said quickly. Just a little thing we put together. A family moment. I let the silence sit. She rushed to fill it. I think you will find it funny. Everyone will. It is all in good fun. And afterward, I will make a little announcement about your future plans. Something to give people confidence that you are, well, being looked after. Harold froze in the middle of slicing a mango. His eyes met mine. My future plans, I repeated. Nothing dramatic, she said lightly. Just a few words about getting you settled. You know security. Routine. Making sure you do not have too much on your plate. She paused, then added, people worry when older parents do not have enough structure. There it was, the slip she didn't mean to reveal. She continued, voice bright again. Anyway, you will stand beside me when I say it. We will look like a united front, will we? I asked softly. Of course, she said, almost impatient. Everything is ready. The slideshow, the captions, the guests. We even rehearsed the lighting cues. All you have to do is show up. Mom. My grip tightened on the phone. Not from fear, just an old ache that finally felt like it was fading. I will see you soon, I said quietly. She mistook it for obedience. Good. And Mom, do not stress. Tomorrow is going to be unforgettable. I know. She hung up with a cheerful goodbye that felt like a mask. I set the phone down. My pulse was steady. Harold resumed chopping. Slower this time. She really said all that. She thinks she already won, I said. He placed the knife down and folded his arms. She has no idea what is coming. I stood and took the bowl of fruit to the counter. My hands moved calmly, automatically, as though preparing for any other celebration. But inside, there was only one truth tomorrow. Melissa would walk onto a stage she thought she controlled. And the moment she opened that walnut box, the storm she built with her own hands would finally break around her. By 7 that evening, Harold's living room was filled with warm voices, clinking dishes, and the unmistakable smell of his tamarind chicken simmering on the stove. Clara arrived first with her famous potato salad. 2 neighbors followed with a tray of empanadas. No one came dressed to impress. No one checked their reflection before stepping through the door. This was the kind of night where people showed up as themselves. I helped set plates on the coffee table when Harold nudged my shoulder. Eat something, he said. You will need steady blood sugar for what is coming. I managed a smile and took a small scoop of rice. But my mind kept drifting north to Phoenix, where Melissa's world was spinning in the opposite direction. Up there, in her glass-walled mansion, the party had begun hours earlier. Bright lights, hired bartenders, rows of crystal flutes waiting on mirrored trays, music loud enough to make the floor vibrate. Investors from Phoenix and Scottsdale filled every corner, laughing too loudly at Melissa's jokes, raising glasses every time she mentioned expansion or partnerships. And near the giant projection screen, a neatly labeled folder read, Slideshow Mom. A group of her friends hovered around it, whispering, "She is going to die when she sees this." One woman said. Another smirked. She will never show her face again after tonight. Melissa, holding a champagne flute, smiled with perfect confidence. Back in Tucson. I sat on Harold's couch between Clara and one of the neighbors. They were debating whether the sparkling wine Harold bought tasted fruity or just cheap. Ava texted me. The party is weird without you. Mom keeps pretending everything is perfect. I typed back, stay close to the good people. I love you. Harold turned down the music as the night grew later. It is almost time, he murmured. He meant it gently. Not theatrically, but even so, my stomach tightened. At 11:25, people moved into Harold's backyard to watch the neighbors' fireworks. I stayed by the sliding door, the cold air touching my arms. Inside, the house was quiet. My phone buzzed. Courier is 2 minutes away. Harold stepped beside me. You want me to turn on the live stream? He joked gently. I shook my head. No. It is enough knowing she will open it. Outside. The first firework crackled across the sky. In Phoenix. The front doors opened. A courier in a dark suit stepped in with a polished walnut box, cradled in both hands. For Ms. Melissa Ruiz, he announced. Oh, Melissa's face lit up. That must be from Mom. She finally did something right. She didn't wait for anyone to gather. She loved an audience, but loved looking in control even more. She carried the box toward the center of the room, heels tapping against the marble floor. Let us see what sentimental thing she sent, she said loudly. People laughed. She tugged the ribbon. The lid opened with a soft click. Her smile froze first. Then her eyes widened. Then her face drained of color. What is this? She whispered. But the documents were already visible. Signatures, statements, report numbers, all lined up under the warm glow of party lights. Around her, voices started rising. What is that? Is that legal paperwork? Why is there a fraud case number? Melissa's hand began to shake. No, she would not. Phones lifted. Read it out loud, someone shouted. The room tightened around her like a fist. At 11:30 in Tucson, Harold poured me a fresh glass of sparkling wine. It has started, he said softly. I nodded. I didn't need to see it. I only needed to know that the truth, finally, was in her hands. The music in Melissa's ballroom dropped to a polite hush when the master of ceremonies tapped the microphone. Conversations dimmed. Champagne glasses stilled. Every face turned toward the stage where Melissa stood. Lips painted bright red. Confidence radiating off her like stage lights. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC announced, beaming, before the countdown, we have a very special surprise. A tribute to our beloved matriarch, Caroline Ruiz. Cheers rolled across the room. A few guests clapped harder than necessary, already primed to laugh at whatever tribute Melissa had planned. That was always her favorite part, making sure people were ready to enjoy the joke before she delivered the punchline. Melissa lifted her hand theatrically. My mother could not be here tonight, but she sent a gift. She motioned toward the walnut box on the table beside her. I have not opened it yet, so we get to experience this together. Smiling wide, she placed her manicured fingers on the lid. Brace yourselves, she teased. You know how sentimental she can be. Laughter. Phones came up. Her friends pushed closer, eager for the show. She lifted the lid. The laughter died first. Her smile followed. Inside, the velvet lining reflected softly under the chandeliers, framing documents she didn't recognize at first. Her hand hovered over them, fingertips brushing the top page. Her eyes narrowed, reading the header. Then she read it again, and again. No, she whispered. A woman in the front row tilted her head. What does it say? Melissa swallowed hard. She hadn't meant to read it out loud. Her voice cracked from instinct more than intention. Elder Financial. Exploitation Report number 17, 42. A ripple went through the room. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, "Report." The investor near the bar took out his phone. Melissa scrambled, flipping the next page with shaking hands. Bank withdrawals totaling unauthorized. Joint account misuse. Her voice grew higher with each word. Power of attorney. Revoked. Investigation pending. The crowd pressed closer. Phones lifted higher. The slideshow screen behind her, originally cued to humiliate me, reflected her pale, disbelieving face. "What is this?" she screamed, slamming the lid shut as if the box could bite. No one laughed. No one moved. Even the MC stood frozen, one hand still hovering near the mic. A man near the back asked, "Melissa, did your mother file something against you?" A woman beside him murmured, "Look at the dates. Those are recent." Melissa's breathing turned sharp. "Turn off your phones. Stop recording." But the command came too late. Screens glowed from every angle. Screenshots clicked. Videos rolled. Someone whispered, "This is real. This is all real." Her husband stepped forward, voice low but audible. "Melissa, what did you do?" She whipped around. "Nothing. She is manipulating. She is lying. She is senile." Another guest cut in. "You signed withdrawal slips. These documents have your signature." The room shifted from party to courtroom in seconds. Melissa backed away from the box as if it were radioactive. No, this is a mistake. It has to be." She stumbled off the stage, pushing past two women who recoiled from her touch. Her heels clicked frantically across the marble, echoing through the suddenly silent room. Behind her, the walnut box remained open, my truth glowing under the ballroom lights like a fuse she had lit herself. The countdown clock hit 11:45, and Melissa Ruiz was already running. My phone began buzzing before midnight sharp. Insistent, non-stop. I didn't have to look at the screen to know who it was. Harold muted the small radio playing in the kitchen. Clara stepped closer. The entire living room softened into silence. Every pair of eyes waiting with me. I answered. Melissa didn't wait for breath. Mom, what did you do?" Her voice was wild, words tumbling over each other behind her. I could hear the chaos of the Phoenix party shouting, phones ringing, someone crying. I kept my voice calm. "Hello, Melissa, you ruined my event. People are saying horrible things. They think I stole from you. They think I'm—" Her voice broke. "Mom, tell them it's not true." I let a slow breath settle into my chest before I spoke. "Did you like my gift?" Silence, then a choked gasp. "Oh my God, you planned this," she whispered. "You planned all of this across Harold's living room." Clara covered her mouth. The others watched quietly, but no one interrupted. Their presence steadied me. "You put reports in the box," Melissa continued. "Frantic. Legal documents. Investigations. Do you have any idea what you've done?" People were recording, Mom. Investors. Clients. Derek's boss was there. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." I sat down on Harold's couch, easing into the cushion. "What you saw," I said carefully, "were copies." Melissa sucked in a breath. "Copies." "Yes," I said. "The originals have already been submitted to Arizona Adult Protective Services and the Bank Fraud Department. They received everything before the party even started." Her scream crackled through the phone, sharp enough that Harold winced. No, take it back. Tell them it was a mistake." "I will not." "You're destroying your own daughter," she shrieked. "Do you want me to go to prison? Is that it? After everything I did for you, after everything I managed." "You managed my accounts without permission," I said. "You withdrew money behind my back. You signed documents under my name. And tonight, you planned to parade me on a stage like a joke." My voice stayed steady, cold, honest. "You did this," I said quietly. "Not me." Melissa took a ragged breath. Mom? Please, I'm begging you. I can fix this. I'll put the money back, some of it. Just tell the investigators you were confused. Harold's eyes flicked toward mine, but he didn't speak. I closed my eyes, feeling tears prick, but they weren't for Melissa. They were for the years I lost trying to be loved by someone who only saw me as a tool. No, I said softly. I will not lie for you. Her tone snapped from desperate to vicious in a single breath. You ungrateful old woman. You think anyone will believe I pressed the red button. The call ended, the line went dead, and the room stayed still. Harold stepped forward, placing a warm hand on my shoulder. It's over, he said. I nodded. Not because the fight was finished, there would be fallout, investigations, consequences, but because the fear, the dread, the years of swallowing my voice, those were gone. For the first time in decades, I felt the quiet, and the quiet felt like freedom. The first week of January moved like a storm, loud, relentless, and impossible to ignore. On the third morning, Sophia called me before sunrise. Her voice was sharp but calm. They opened the case. Adult Protective Services and the Financial Crimes Division are both involved. Things are moving fast. I sat at Harold's kitchen table, hands wrapped around a warm mug. What happens now? Interviews, subpoenas. They'll want bank statements from the last 5 years, and Melissa will be questioned. Her tone softened. You did the right thing, Caroline. I thanked her and hung up, exhaling into the quiet. By the end of that week, the first domino fell. Melissa's firm issued a press statement announcing she was temporarily suspended from partnership duties pending an internal review. The words were polished, careful, exactly the kind of language that meant they were cutting her loose without saying it out loud. Derek called the next evening. His voice trembled. I filed to freeze our assets. He said, the investigators needed cooperation. I didn't know. Caroline, I swear I didn't know. I believed him. Derek was weak sometimes, but not cruel. Protect yourself, I told him. And protect the kids. They're the only thing I have left, he whispered. 2 days later, the bank officer from Phoenix arranged a call with me and Sophia. His tone was all business. We reviewed the joint accounts. He said, a number of withdrawals were made using signatures that do not match your verified record. We'll be forwarding all irregularities to investigators. Sophia leaned closer to her webcam. You're acknowledging signature discrepancies. Yes. And internal policy violations by the staff member who approved them? I closed my eyes. The truth was finally out of my hands. It was no longer my burden to explain or defend. The knock on my door came the next afternoon. When I opened it, Ava stood on the porch, shoulders shaking, hair pulled into a messy bun. She looked nothing like the confident teenager who had left Phoenix for school events and tennis practice. Grandma. Her voice broke. I'm so sorry. I stepped back, letting her inside. She dropped her bag and collapsed into my arms like she had when she was 6, and I didn't know Mom was doing all this. She cried. I heard things, but I didn't understand. And when I saw that box everyone was talking about it, I didn't know what to do. I held her close, letting her cry. It isn't your fault, sweetheart. She pulled back, wiping her face. Are you mad at me? No, I said quietly. Not mad, just cautious. Things need to be different now. Ava nodded quickly. I'll earn it, I swear. I guided her to the couch. She curled up beside me like she used to when she was small. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. You won't, I said. But we're going to rebuild carefully. Together, she rested her head on my shoulder. And for the first time in months, the house didn't feel empty. At sunset, after Ava left to stay with her father, I sat alone by the window. The consequences had finally reached the right doorstep, not loudly, not violently, but with the steady force of truth. moving exactly where it needed to go. Melissa's world was unraveling thread by thread, and for the first time in a long time, mine was beginning to settle into something that felt like peace. The sentencing hearing was quiet, almost clinical. Melissa kept her eyes on the table while the judge listed every count: restitution, financial exploitation, misuse of joint accounts. Her voice barely carried when she whispered, "Yes, Your Honor," agreeing to repay the money and complete 100 hours of community service. She wasn't handcuffed. She wasn't dragged away. She simply stood there, stripped of the certainty she once wore like armor. The judge's final order echoed through the room. For a period of 10 years, Melissa Ruiz is barred from managing, influencing B2Bs, or accessing any financial account belonging to Ms. Caroline Ruiz. I didn't look at her when it ended. There was nothing left to say. 2 months later, the restitution check arrived. Derek mailed it with a note saying he hoped it would bring me closure. I used part of it to start something I had dreamed of for years but never believed I could create. The Miguel Ruiz Fund, named for my late husband, dedicated to seniors who had no one to speak for them, those exploited, ignored, or dismissed. Harold cried when I showed him the paperwork. "Miguel would be proud," he said, wiping the corner of his eye. I believed it too. A year passed. Another December. Another New Year's Eve. This time, Harold hosted a small dinner, just like he promised. Clara brought pozole. A neighbor made flan. The kitchen filled with real laughter, the kind that didn't check who was watching. When Ava walked in, holding a small potted plant, my breath caught. "It's for your window," she said shyly. "For the new year." I hugged her. Slower than before. Careful, but willing. We were rebuilding, not pretending. During dinner, someone teased Harold about burning the tortillas, and the table erupted. I sat there quietly for a moment, letting the warmth settle in my chest. I hadn't ruined Melissa. She had ruined herself by believing I was powerless, by underestimating a woman who had survived grief, scarcity, and years of disrespect. I didn't need her party. I just needed peace. Near midnight, I stepped outside with my glass of sparkling cider. The laughter drifted through the window behind me. Harold nudged my shoulder from the doorway. "You made it through the longest year of your life," he said. "Yes," I answered. "And I made it on my terms. If you're listening to my story right now, don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. It helps more people find these stories." I lifted my glass to the quiet sky. If you had 1 year left to choose yourself, would you finally do it?